There is a price to pay for poor dating, a bad marriage, and/or an ugly divorce. Stay with me and we will finish our discussion. Greetings, daters of all ages. I'm John F. Whitney, author of the book I Do, If It's Equitable, a philosophy for dating and marriage to avoid the potential horrors of divorce. I will be your host and your guide as we discuss the I Do philosophy. This is Section 4, Part 2, the price of poor dating, a bad marriage, and/or an ugly divorce. The red square at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen is a subscribe button. If you feel I'm doing a good job, please consider clicking that subscribe button anytime during this video. The purpose of dating is mating. Let the search begin. Humans, as any other species, are driven by the need to find a mate. As a result, a good deal of our adult lives can be spent seeking someone special. Unfortunately, with few exceptions, we rarely find them. Why? Because far too often we lose sight of someone special and enter into a relationship impulsively, commit to another person for the wrong reasons, give our heart and soul to someone before we really know who they are, or ignore in them what we might otherwise find intolerable. Somehow we believe love will find a way. Also decreasing our patience to wait for someone special is the sex drive. If sex becomes the focus of the relationship, then perspective is often lost, and disaster usually results. For all these reasons, and many more, we seem to fall victim to ourselves and fail in our search to find someone special. Call me a cynic, perhaps rightfully so, because I believe that the norms of our society contribute to and do nothing to resolve the breakdown in our relationships. Call me a cynic, perhaps rightfully so, because I believe that the norms of our society contribute to and do nothing to resolve the breakdown in our relationships. Ergo, my cynicism. Or maybe the reason for this cynicism, or the answer to the almost predictable breakdown in relationships, is simpler. Perhaps men and women are still using ages-old motivations to select and attract a prospective mate. From the personal ads. The title, Cinderella. Financially secure prince whose chariot is a Rolls Royce seeks firm, sensual, and fit beauty, 30 to 45, natural blonde or plus. Let me wine and dine you. A man, it seems, wants a woman who is beautiful, sexy, and knows how to inflate his ego. He attracts her by what he is, what he does, what he has. His goal, trophy wife, ego feeder. The title, Exotic Italian Princess, 26, likes dancing, movies, Caribbean vacations. Seeks an Italian or Hispanic prince, 26 to 40. Only the brave, handsome, and financially secure princes need apply. A woman, it seems, wants a man who can provide for her, rescue her, pamper her, spoil her, fulfill her dreams. In short, give her a life she cannot achieve on her own. She attracts him through her appearance, her sexiness, and a chameleon-like intimacy to feed his ego. Her goal, security for today and tomorrow. If the previous is true, then the most superficial reasons can prompt men and women to choose this one rather than wait for someone special. So what? Most men would contend that any woman they marry could ultimately cause them to face financial and emotional disaster. Why? Because in their opinion, the deck is stacked in favor of the woman, and the consequences of marriage or a failed marriage minimally impact the women, if at all. Obviously, physical and emotional abuses are dire consequences, but this discussion is limited to financial consequences only. For example, working. Here especially, most men believe that women have choices, men have responsibilities. That is, once married, most women will not tolerate a man who decides to quit work, as they believe it is his responsibility to provide for the marriage. Yet, once married, these very same women will think nothing of choosing to quit work. Other examples of the stacked deck given by men are: lifestyle increases can allow a former wife a better life than she could independently earn for herself, often even if the marriage lasted a minimal time and/or she has remarried. Alimony can impact a man's income for years beyond the final divorce. Ex-wives can pursue a former husband's income even if the divorce is ancient history. Therefore, given the stacked deck, most men conclude that they suffer the greatest financial consequences in marriage and divorce. However, most women would contend marriage would likely rob them of their independence. That is, the woman must often surrender career goals and earning potential for the sake of the man or the marriage. They might be expected to give the best years of their life to the man so that he can succeed. Can her career ever recover from the low or no priority it was relegated to? In return, she expects the man to provide current and future stability and security for her. Should divorce occur, alimony, child support, and lifestyle increases are all part of her fair return for the sacrifices she made. However, most women believe that their sacrifice and security are at constant risk should the man decide to leave at any time for any reason. After all, how is the woman protected by a system that does not often address or reward the intangibles she gave to the man and the marriage? Why all this doom and gloom regarding marriage, which is supposed to be about love, romance, and intimacy? Marriage is not the concern. The marriage that fails is the cause of this doom and gloom. Bluntly stated, a failed marriage often results in devastating emotional and financial consequences. But I digress. At this point, let's accept that choosing to marry for superficial reasons or on impulse, which in turn means we marry the wrong person, will likely lead to future disaster. Why? Every decision we make in life has a resulting short or long-term consequence and price to pay. The usual financial consequences which men and women contend they fall victim to have been discussed. But there are also emotional consequences attached to these decisions that can exact a very high price indeed. The pain of the breakup, the loneliness, the self-doubt, the anger can all be devastating. The personal torture we create by punishing ourselves by what was said or done, or not said, or not done, is just as hideous. Should divorce occur, woe unto both once the lawyers get involved. How does the I do philosophy fit into the search for someone special? During dating, the I do philosophy should discourage impulsive decisions and therefore minimize their consequences. Properly applied, it will be difficult to enter into an impulsive marriage, as you will understand not only why each wants to marry the other, but, moreover, you will define each person's abilities, limits, goals, expectations, strengths, and role in the marriage. During dating, the I do philosophy offers common sense solutions to problems that arise, beliefs and behaviors that apply to and govern both partners, as well as fair and equitable division of assets and property. From this common ground, the couple draft an I do contract, which guides and protects them. Once done, they can focus on the true purpose of marriage, loving, enjoying, and sharing the other without having to fear any financial harm the other might cause. Marriage? Rushing things a bit, aren't we? No, not really. The I do philosophy will protect and serve dating and marriage relationships equally as well. However, the I do philosophy presumes that the reader will one day seek a marriage relationship which results in obligations absent from a dating relationship. Therefore, a discussion of marriage, its related issues and potential consequences is both necessary and justified. I know it when I see it. Marriage. William Shakespeare said, "Many a good hanging prevents a bad marriage." Henry Felding said, "One fool at least in every marriage." The Marquis de Sade, yes, the Marquis de Sade, said, "The horror of wedlock, the most appalling, the most loathsome of all bonds of humankind, has devised for its own discomfort and degradation." George Farquhar said, "When the blind lead the blind, no wonder they both fall into matrimony." King Vidor said, "Marriage isn't a word, it's a sentence." Arthur Schopenhauer said, "In our monogamous part of the world, to marry means to cut one's rights in half and double one's duties." Iris Murdoch said, "In almost every marriage there is a selfish and unselfish partner. A pattern is set up and soon becomes inflexible, of one person always making the demands and one person always giving way." And finally, an anonymous source said, "Ignorance is bliss, marriage is bliss, therefore..." Marriage, a sacrament to some Christian religions, binding once uttered to the Jewish faith. A union of souls that God has joined and no one should tear asunder. The truest commitment true people can ever have until death do they part. Then why do so many marriages fail? Perhaps because so many couples are apparently content to marry in haste. Or perhaps because far too many people fail to look at marriage with a critical eye, enslaved by carnal, superficial, or emotional reasons to marry. Put another way, perhaps so many marriages fail because of the 3 blind mice rule. The 3 blind mice rule states that marriage will likely fail if either person considering marriage 1. Believes that marriage is blind. Granted, marriage should be blind to the worldly things that can destroy it. Greed, avarice, spite, deceit, to name a few. However, marriage does not have the luxury of Lady Justice, blindfolded, with only the balance of scales to guide her. Marriage cannot be blind to the potential disaster that awaits it. Why? Once the scales tip, the consequences might have a very high price associated with them. 2. Believes that love is blind. Anyone who believes that love is blind should not be surprised by the disaster that befalls them in dating and/or marriage. 3. Or allows themselves to be blinded by love. Anyone who is blinded by love usually does not, will not, or cannot see the true nature of a lover until it's too late. The emotional, spiritual, and financial consequences of this eventual realization can be high. Higher still if a marriage has already taken place. Let's wait and see. On the other hand, the other extreme also exists. Sometimes a person is overly cautious regarding dating and marriage. That is, they choose to wait out relationships or push them to the limit of endurance to see if they will prove themselves worthy, forgiving, unconditional. Much time, effort, energy, and money can be spent waiting for the scales to tip. Most often, the relationship dies from this approach. If it survives, the damage to the relationship can take just as much time, effort, energy, and money to repair as it took to create the disaster in the first place. The I Do philosophy seeks to temper both spontaneous and overly cautious approaches to dating and marriage. It does so by removing the blindfold and demanding that each partner examine carefully what they are about to do and who they are about to do it with. It will also have each look ahead, set limits before the marriage occurs, accept the strengths and weaknesses of the other, define goals, anticipate problems. In short, give the marriage every possible chance to survive before it occurs. Seems like so much work. Isn't there another way? How about a prenuptial agreement? The very words prove its weakness. An agreement is an understanding between two parties. That we agree now, before marriage, means that we can disagree later, during divorce. A prenup must meet specific requirements to be valid. It must be fair and reasonable to both parties at the time it is executed, and it must be fair and reasonable at the time judgment of divorce is granted. And it expects a full disclosure of all assets, liabilities, and property by both parties. Often, prenups are challenged on grounds of coercion. They must be accepted and affirmed by a court to give them legal standing, and/or can be contested within 6 years of signing. Worse yet, prenups are usually designed to protect one person from the other. This is what's best for me is the viewpoint of a prenup, which might lead both persons to believe neither trusts the other. Finally, prenups do nothing to foster open communication, planning, and trust during the relationship. In contrast, an I do contract is a specific agreement which is legally binding on both parties and enforceable in court. The I do contract is designed to protect both persons from the other, or perhaps from the other person's lawyer. How? It demands each partner believes in honest and open communication, fair and equitable financial obligations, and common standards of conduct. The ultimate proof of these beliefs is a written contract which is binding on both partners. This is what's best for both of us, is the attitude that guides and protects as the I do philosophy is being applied. How does the I do philosophy protect both persons equally? First, the I do philosophy demands honest and open communication from each partner. Next, strengths, limitations, assets, liabilities, and expectations are understood beforehand, which in turn should allow each person to completely understand the other and themselves. Finally, the means by which property and profit is vested, distributed, and divided is based upon equity. This should remove or neuter greed, spite, avarice, and deceit from the relationship. Properly applied, the I do philosophy should allow both partners to continue dating and/or enter marriage without suspicion or fear. But why be suspicious about marriage? Are not vows exchanged? Yes, but a funny thing happened on the way to the church. Marriage vows revisited. Consider the marriage vows. Do you, John, take Jane to be a lawfully wedded wife, to love, honor, respect, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, until death do you part? The expected response is, I do. A more appropriate response should be, yeah, sure, whatever. Get on with it, Reverend. Why? Marriage is not the spiritual or societal obligation it once was. Why? Perhaps because divorce and premarital and extramarital affairs are not as distasteful to society as they once were. Or perhaps no-fault divorce has eliminated the consequences for aberrant behavior during marriage. Face it, in today's society, replacing a spouse is no more a task than replacing a pair of shoes. Or perhaps today's marriages do not have the endurance, forgiveness, patience, or tolerance they once had because men and women enter into marriage on impulse, for all the wrong reasons, and/or with ulterior motives. Call me a cynic, but true, enduring, unconditional, forgiving love is all too rare today. Therefore, far too often, the demands of the marriage vows are conditional and should be taken as follows. Do you, John, take Jane to be your currently wedded wife, to love, honor, and respect, if you choose to do so, to have and to hold, if it is convenient, until death do you part, or until things get too rough, money becomes an issue, you fall out of love, or someone better crosses your path. The I do philosophy attempts to give some substance to the marriage vows. How? Not by removing romance. Rather, by neutralizing ulterior motives before the marriage occurs, by demanding that each truly understand and accept the other for who they are, not what they appear to be, or what they can do to improve your life. This is accomplished by defining each person's strengths, weaknesses, goals, abilities, and limitations before the marriage occurs. From this common ground, guidelines are adopted which govern the couple and define how property is divided before the marriage occurs. With hearts and minds as one, the marriage can be entered into for the reason it was created, to love, honor, and respect the other person. Or, put another way, careful application of the I do philosophy should protect you from the price of poor dating, a bad marriage, and/or an ugly divorce. This concludes our discussion on the price of poor dating, bad marriage, and/or an ugly divorce. Our next topic will be, so what's the problem? Case studies. I hope you will join me. If you learned anything of value, please consider hitting that like and share button. Leave me a comment, especially if you have a question, concern, problem, or issue we might be able to solve together. Or perhaps you can assist me in improving my presentations to you. Finally, if you feel that I am worthy of your time and effort, please consider subscribing. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you will know when I upload a new installment of the I Do Philosophy. Until next time, date wisely, date safely, and remember, I do, if it's equitable.